Welcome everyone to the Disaster Response Collaborative. First focus area session for evacuation planning. As a reminder, the Pediatric Pandemic Network is supported in part by the Health Resources and Services Administration of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. The content presented today is that of the authors and does not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by, HRSA, HHS, or the U.S. government. As with the full DRC collaborative sessions, the focus area sessions will also provide continuing education units for several of you. As a reminder, you must attend the entire live session to receive the credit. You want to complete the session evaluation that will be available at the end of today's session. Also, at the end of today's session, there will be an instruction slide, and it will have a code for you to take after the evaluation. It'll have a code for you to take to the portal to enter to actually get those CEs. So again, we are really pleased that you have joined the evacuation focus area group. We are going to have so much fun in the next year and a half, and we're going to learn a lot from each other. So welcome. This session is being recorded. Got to check that and make sure. The recording and the slides will be posted on the website in the next 10 days. If you have questions, you can add those to the chat. You can also add them to the Q&A box as well. Chat's probably easier. Again, we are offering continuing education for each session, as well as overall MOC Part 4 for physicians. You have heard us mention an evaluation or an environmental scan. This is going to be done through a larger self-assessment called the Pediatric Disaster Preparedness Self-Assessment for Children's Hospital. I call it PDPAC because that's a lot to remember. So you can be looking for that in the next probably month or two. They're taking care of some last minute touches on that. So we will announce that. So just be looking for that. That is going to help you and your hospital assess not just evacuation, but also your surge part of your disaster plan. It's going to help you assess triage, infection control, and decontamination, and all the other focus groups in that EIIC disaster checklist. So be on the lookout for that. Here is our agenda for today.
All right, let's take a look at what we are going to be doing for the next 90 minutes or so. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to get to know all of you as we take this journey together, right? And so we'll start by welcoming everyone and introducing participants so that folks can begin to establish connections with others and begin to network and ensure we're aligned. And before we dive into discussions, we'll review some common terminology so that we're kind of all speaking that same language. And Kathy Alita's in a discussion on that, and she's fantastic. After that, really the heart of today's session is open discussion and talking about key challenges, potential solutions, actionable next steps, right? Those fun things that take a little bit of time. And then we'll take a few minutes to recap insights from the DRC session and some valuable polling and lessons learned from that session so that we can carry it forward with us to evacuation as we move forward. And then finally, we will identify your priorities and key challenges, the things that you want to focus on in the upcoming months. And that's really key for us moving forward. Next slide, Julie. Great. So our objectives today, and these are just our objectives for this session. We'll establish different objectives for each session moving forward, but we hope for this session to strengthen our collaborative learning environment. That's really important so that we can ensure that all of you build meaningful connections and can share your insights in really this safe, right? It seems weird to say that, but that's the safe environment. And then work to identify the key challenges that we talked about. We hope to clarify participant roles. And so that will help everyone understand how they can contribute and benefit from the collaboration through June 2026. And that sounds like a long time, but it will go in the flash. So we'll then examine common challenges again in pediatric evacuation and hopefully be able to learn from each other and establish clear next steps. So those are some of our objectives for this particular session today. I'd like to begin, before we dive in, to introduce each of the speakers. I'm going to turn the time over to Kathy and Julie, and so they can introduce themselves as they'll be formally speaking today. I'll introduce myself, and then I'd like to invite the other members of the evacuation group to be able to jump in and say your names. Kathy.
Well, hello. My name's Kathy. Kathy Lehman Huskamp is my very long hyphenated name. I am in Charleston, South Carolina with the Medical University of South Carolina. I have been involved with emergency management, in particular hospital emergency management and hospital disaster planning, I guess for about 15 years now, and have worked with the American Academy of Pediatrics, ASAP, and PPN.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Julie, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Shelton. I am the Advanced Quality Improvement Specialist for the Pediatric Pandemic Network and the Quality Improvement Service Corps within that. If you have emailed the DNC PPN email address, you've probably heard back from me. And if you've been on the DRC sessions, you've heard from me. So thanks for being here.
And then I'll talk a little bit about myself. Hi, I'm Annette. My big passion for 35 years has been burn disaster, and I'm the Western Region Burn Disaster Consortium Coordinator for the American Burn Association, and I also work really closely with Primary Children's Hub, who, yay, I see people from Primary Children's on this, which is one of their choices. And so I do PPN operations and then also do the PCH hub. And then I'm also the Western Region Alliance for Pediatric Emergency Management Utah coordinator, and then a consultant for the Utah Hospital Association. So super, super excited to be here and to talk with you. I know Abby was driving. She just texted me. And she might have said, somebody let me in. So Abby, if you're on the call, feel free to jump in and introduce yourself. She said she may have trouble unmuting, so we might wait for a second. Dave McCarthy, are you online? Oh, Abby, I see you.
I'm here.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the group, Abby?
Oh, sure. Sorry. First off, apologies for being late. I was in a very exciting trauma systems meeting here in Kentucky. Hey, y'all. Abby Bailey. I am the Norton Children's Hospital Hub Manager for the PPN, and I lead the trauma burn domain also for the PPN. I'm out of Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm really excited that you all are joining us for this DRC group.
David McCarthy, are you on? Shanna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shayna Godford Cato. I'm a pediatrician at Primary Children's in Utah, and I came off a night shift and a trauma sim day, so I'm really sorry about that. But I'm here and excited to be here.
We love you for being here. Thank you for spending this time with us. Shanna is she's quiet about all of her expertise, but she comes with some fantastic background. And then we also have Kate Remick. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. My name's Kate Remick. I'm a peds emergency medicine EMS physician, and I co-lead the QI collaboratives of the Pediatric Pandemic Network. It's really nice to have you all on. Thanks, Annette.
And then last but certainly not least, do we have Pat Frost on? She's been gallivanting around Europe and has just gotten done speaking, so she may or may not be on with us. I think she flew back in today. I see Julie nodding, shaking her head, so it looks like no, but you're in for some fantastic sessions with Pat's knowledge. She's the National Disaster Pediatric Coalition. So let us move forward to team introductions. So now it's your turn, and we would love for you to take a moment to introduce yourselves. And if you can, come off camera so we don't feel so alone in our blur background space. That would be fantastic. That way we can see your faces. And this is how we hope for this piece to go. So first of all, we would like the team lead to introduce themselves, their hospital, and their location, and share something that they're most proud of when it comes to their hospital evacuation plan. And this could be best practice, it could be a recent improvement, it could be a strength, but it really could be anything that they are most proud of and they find valuable. And then after the team lead is introduce themselves, and it may be that some of you are texting each other to find out who's team lead, but that's the team leader's responsibility, right? And then we would like each person within that team after the team lead to introduce themselves after the team lead is shared. And again, just if you can say your name and your role in the hospital, this will really help us understand the range of expertise and perspectives we have in this group. I love to call it the kaleidoscope of perspectives that each of you bring. And so is there anyone that would like to volunteer to start? Stephanie, we would love you.
Hi, I am Stephanie Buckley. I am the Emergency Management and Life Safety Coordinator for Children's Nebraska in Omaha, Nebraska. And I just came over to Children's from a different healthcare system, CHI Health, last November. So I'm still learning more pediatrics, but an aspect that I'm very proud of to be a part of Children's is actually in 2019, we participated as the hospital to evacuate within our healthcare coalition. And I'm hoping to present to our leadership that next year, the healthcare coalition would like to also do another evacuation. And so I would really like Children's to be a part of that as well. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I've been in emergency management from the kind of safety compliance side for about 4 to 5 years. So excited to be here. Thank you.
I want you to know, Stephanie, I wrote your name down as somebody that would like to present to this group in the future. So that's great that you did an HCC evac, especially seeing as that's one of the task items that they have to think about too this year. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, who's on Stephanie's team? Kathy, are you part of Stephanie's team?
I'm not. I was just volunteering to go next. Stephanie, do you have any others?
I do not actually. I am soloing it.
Go ahead,
Want me
Kat.
to go next, Annette?
Yep, you bet. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Harris. I'm the Executive Director of Emergency Management at Stanford Healthcare and Stanford Medicine Children's Health in Palo Alto, California. An aspect of our plan that I'm most proud of is its development that Dr. Anna Lynn and several of her colleagues did of the TRAIN system that helps with identifying what resources would be needed to appropriately move our pediatric as well as mother and baby patients. So really grateful to have that opportunity to leverage that resource and help share it with others. And I believe I'm solo on the call this afternoon, but looking forward to sharing this information back with my team.
Well, and I wrote that down too, Kathy. So absolutely, we'll get you to share TRAIN. That's fantastic.
I would love to learn how to get TRAIN incorporated into Epic and EMRs. It seems like it would be such a easy thing to do. I'm not a computer person.
I
but
don't
as
know if it's easy, but I can attest that it is integrated into our Epic, so it is
yeah,
possible.
it becomes part of the daily vital signs.
Totally. Yeah, great resource.
Cassie, I see your hand.
Hi, I'm Cassie Santos. I'm the Pediatric Emergency Preparedness Coordinator at Advocate Children's Hospital, Park Ridge, Illinois. I'm still fairly new to this role, within 1 year. And I'm most proud of our hospital recognizing the need for emergency preparedness and giving me this role full time to be able to help build this within our hospital system.
That's awesome, Cassie. And I love that you brought that up because that's actually one of our poll questions later on. And so perhaps we can get you to share, if not today, but in the future, about your hospital support of the programming. That's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have some other members from my hospital on here.
Oh, great. Whoever's with Cassie. Do you
Hi,
want to?
I'm Shannon Manio. I'm the manager of the Pediatric Emergency Department at Advocate Children's in Park Ridge. And it's been really great. We have a bi-campus hospital. So Advocate Children's in Oak Lawn has theirs. They're in a separate district. They have their own separate emergency preparedness coordinator within their children's facility that works with their parent hospital of Christ. And now we have children's representation in our parent hospital of Lutheran, so that it's been a really great collaboration. So we're looking forward to growing with you.
That's great. Anyone else with Cassie?
I'm Anne-Marie Orris-Scannon. I'm one of the physicians in the Pediatric Emergency Department, and I'm very happy to be here and excited to learn more about all of the behind-the-scenes work and policies and procedures and everything that goes into this to help kind of bring it back to our forefront and our front lines to be able to educate the other physicians on what next steps are if we ever have to be in a situation like this.
Great, thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Other than that?
Hi, I'm Jackie Forbes from Children's National in Washington, D.C. I'm on here with Dr. Goodwin. But what I wanted to say is that I'm proud of the fact that we've gotten to exercise our plan. Just challenges because where we would exercise to would be very dispersed because we're the only pediatric facility in the District of Columbia. So just being able to manage staff as they go to those various areas would be a challenge. But I'm proud of the fact that we do work closely with the city and we would have resources to help us as we have to evacuate.
That's awesome. We'll absolutely call on you too in the future. I'm writing this all down. So if anyone doesn't want to talk in the future, they shouldn't share what they're proud of because I've got you logged and tracked on a large sticky note. Was there anyone else with Cassie, first of all, or with Jacqueline that just talked?
Dr. Goodwin's on with me, I think.
Yes, I'm here. Yep, she did a great intro for Children's in DC.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. And Tanya, I believe you had your hand up. I saw it.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Tanya Trevelyan. I'm the Pediatric Trauma Program Manager at Carilion Children's in Roanoke, Virginia. We're a hospital within a hospital. So we're at Carilion Roanoke Memorial Hospital, which is the large hospital that we are encompassed as children's services in. Let's see, what aspect of our hospital's evacuation plan am I most proud of? The fact that we're creating one for our pediatric area, because our NICU has one and our mother baby area has one, and so does our L&D floors, but we're the only floor within that top 4 floors that don't. And I have Patrick Randolph, who's a special projects manager, on the line with me, as well as Leisha Osborne. She's our Peds PICU nursing director.
Awesome. That's great. I love that you're just creating a plan. So perhaps we can all assist with that and create it together, or at least help together. Patrick and Lisa, do you want to jump on camera? Are you somewhere where you can't do that, and so we can see your faces?
Hey everybody, I'm Patrick Randolph. Thank you, Tanya, for the introduction. I'm happy to be here and learn as much as we can so we can incorporate that into our system.
Great.
I don't see myself, but I have my camera on. I'm Leisha Osborne. I'm one of the unit directors for Peds and PICU, the floor that we're talking about. I've been there for about 6 years and very excited to be able to get this put together so that we have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I saw Brian's hand first. So Brian and his team, and then Ashley and her team. Brian, I think you might be muted.
Stand by. After how many years? We still can't come off mute at the right time. So Brian Barth, I'm the manager of emergency preparedness at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I think probably the most exciting piece for me is that we've in the past 2 years opened a second hospital, community hospital just outside of the city of Philadelphia, as well as a pediatric behavioral health specialty site in the city. So working now with the teams to integrate our evacuation plans across all 3 of those sites, and working with the other hospitals in our region and outside. And I think I have Regina on the line as well. Regina's able to come off mute.
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody. I can't be on camera just yet, but I'll be in my driveway in about 0.5 seconds. So I was just in the car. So I'm Regina Toto. I'm one of the pediatric emergency medicine physicians at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I work closely with Brian. I'm the medical director of emergency preparedness and business continuity.
Awesome.
Nice to see you all and happy to be here.
And I love that you brought in the behavioral health component. So I have got your name circled, Brian. Perhaps we can call on you in the future for some of that. It's a really important evacuation piece. Who was next? I see Zachary. That was Zachary, were you next?
That's fine. Good afternoon. I'm Zachary Goldfarb from Montefiore Health System, specifically the Children's Hospital of Montefiore. I'm a certified emergency manager, and we work in support of the emergency management program at Montefiore, which includes CHAM. CHAM is a 200-bed standalone independent pediatric hospital in the borough of the Bronx in New York City. Montefiore Health System is 10 hospitals in New York City, mostly in the Bronx and Lower Hudson Valley, Westchester County area north of the city. So that's where I'm from. I see we have Hector Valentin is one of our folks also on the line. So maybe Hector can introduce himself as well. Regarding our hospital's evacuation plan, well, I'm proud that we have one. I would say that what I anticipate doing, and that we have a number of our colleagues are in a number of these programs. I know there was someone in Surge earlier, and I think one of my colleagues is in the patient tracking webinar, which I think is going on at the same time as this. And I think one of the things that we want to do is we're being inspired by this programming to really turn our focus onto planning for CHAM. We do have, of course, plans for all of these facilities. We have tested evacuation in our medical response to surge exercises, our annual mandatory exercises over the last few years. but of course those are more notional than physical. So I think we can do some more work toward evacuation planning, as well as we're working on an entire patient tracking program, which my colleague is working on the other screen. So we're looking forward to learning from everyone. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Zach. Well, we're looking forward to hearing in the future from you about patient tracking, because that's also an important piece too. So thanks for sharing. Hector, did you want to jump on and say anything, or?
Oh, hi everyone. Hector Valentin from Montefiore. I work with environmental health and safety and emergency management alongside Zach Goldfarb. But I mean, all I could really say is on my end, is more contributions to the emergency communications and alerting. But for anything else I could say, I think he explained it quite well. And those are our focuses. And personally, one of the things I'm most proud of is Montefiore's approach not only to all hazards, but truly to the whole community, and serving and taking into consideration all patient demographics that we have, especially in our surrounding areas when it comes to our emergency planning, evacuations, and community resources.
That's great. I love that you brought the full community piece up. Thanks, Hector. Ashley.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley Ave, the Emergency Management Coordinator for Valley Children's Healthcare. We're a standalone pediatric facility in Madera, California, which is just north of Fresno. And I've been poring over evacuation plans, toolkits, all the things for many years. And finally, it's a deadline I have for myself and our team to have an actual hospital evacuation plan completed within a year. So I'm very glad to be a part of this group, to learn from all of you. And we're actually excited to start working on implementing Train at our facility. And so we've been trying to do that for a couple of years, and it looks like we're finally to the point where we're ready to assign resources to that. So just excited to be able to explain things to our team, because I'm pretty much the only one that's been poring over this stuff for so long. So I'm trying to like grab everybody else and say, okay, it's time. So anyway, that's me and our team. My coworker was going to be on the call today, but couldn't. So I'll be sharing this information with her. Actually, I'm here. She's here. Yay. Yay. Yeah, my name's Angie England. I work with Ashley, and she's been braving this position for many years as a part-time individual. I don't know how she's done it all. And they finally approved to bring me in so that we could both kind of help create one full position. So I'm excited to learn and excited to be here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Kristen, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi everybody. Kristen Slocum. I'm here with Children's Mercy. Oh, sorry about that. There you guys go. Children's Mercy here in Kansas City. I'm still kind of learning about our plan, but I'm joined here with my team, Morgan and Whitney, so I will turn it over to them.
Hey, thanks, Kristen. Morgan Dudley here. I'm the Director of Emergency Management and Business Continuity at Children's Mercy in Kansas City. Whitney Miller is part of our team. She actually had to step out to cover another meeting. And then Brittany Blazer is also part of our team, but she is on the reunification call at this point. But that's who you'll see on these with us. Most proud of, I mean, I think there's a lot of things I could repeat. I will say, to just try to add to it, just the, I know we've talked about leadership support, but just the financial support around it too, because evacuation equipment is very expensive and it takes a lot of it. Especially if you have some of your higher risk, populations or non-ambulatory kids. And so we are finally to a point now where we have the appropriate amount of equipment for our organization, and feel like we're in a position where we really truly could safely evacuate our kids if needed.
Oh, that's great. I loved, again, that support piece will be a poll we have upcoming too. So I love that you pulled that into it early on, Morgan. That's really, really important. Jack, you have your hand up.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Jack Smith, Nationwide Children's Hospital, Columbus, Ohio.
I'm in the Office of Emergency Management, and on the call, we also have most of our team, Kayla Hamilton, Skylar Wiggin, and Cassie Casanova. So that rounds out our emergency management team. And then our medical director, Dr. Colin Clark, is also on the call. We actually have a new, another second patient tower, a 14-story critical care tower under construction. So we've actually been evaluating all of the, or a large number of evacuation devices that are on the market to make sure that we have the right ones for the right patient populations. And we actually just went through a big evaluation process, incorporating or with a work group that we stood up of representation from all of those inpatient units. So rather than us just deciding what devices we're going to outfit the building with, we wanted to get the clinicians at the bedside involved in that evaluation of all those devices to see what works best for their patient demographics. So we just finished that evaluation and are making our selections now. And then kind of on the other end of the process, we've got about 160 NICU beds spread across half a dozen host hospitals. And so looking at offsite evacuation, especially in these cold winter months, how do we ensure that we're keeping NICU babies warm for a long ground transport if that had to be the case, and outfitting the trucks to be able to do that. So try just some implementation tactics on both ends of our plan, and basically just an evaluation and overhaul of the whole process.
That is exciting, Jack. I love that you got feedback from the boots on the ground and did an evaluation of those tools. And perhaps that's again something we can call on in future sessions of this, to take a look at that evaluation that you did and which your boots on the ground felt were most valuable. That's awesome. Did your team members want to jump in and say hi? I think I've got Skylar, Cassie, Colin.
Again, I'm an emergency management coordinator, Nationwide Children's Hospital, main campus. So hello.
Hi.
Hey, yeah, I'm Colin Clark. I'm a pediatric emergency medicine physician at Nationwide Children's Hospital, working with Jack in the Office of Emergency Management. Really excited to be here.
Great, thanks for jumping on. All right, who has not introduced themselves yet?
I think Gwen hasn't introduced herself because she's probably timid since she's fairly new to her role. So Gwen, do you want to say something? Okay, she doesn't.
Gwen will, before the end of this session, it is our goal to have you say something. Even in the chat. Is there anyone that we are missing from the introductions? Thank you all. It was fantastic to see your faces. It was great to hear the things that you're proud of. We have your names for the opportunities for you to share too, some of those things that you are most proud of, and are really grateful for sharing those things. Deb, you have your hand up.
I do. Hi, I'm Deb Maka. I'm the pharmacist for the PICU over at Advent Health for Children here in Florida. I had a few technical issues, so I don't know if my team responded or not. I think Laura Burgos is on, who's one of our transport people, one of our leaders of transport, excuse me, moved up in the ranks. We are working on a variety of things. One of the issues that we run into is we are a children's hospital in the middle of a very large adult campus. So it's the trying to ensure that the pediatric needs are being met as well. But excited to be here with you.
Oh, I love that you brought that up, because I'm sure, Deb, that you're not the only one. So that's fantastic. I have a big star by your name because that has some unique challenges. Thanks. Scott, yay, Utah.
I know. I was hoping we could sneak by without saying anything, but I think we should.
No way,
So
I'm gonna call on you.
I'm Scott Starkey. I am an ED nurse, but I'm also the hub site manager for our PPN hub site at Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I think Dr. Hughes is on here too. Well, fortunate for us, Annette is a part of our team, and Dr. Godfrey Cato is a part of our team. So they've already introduced themselves. I would say probably one of the things we're most proud of, I would just say that we've had that opportunity to discuss in some exercises how to evacuate our hospital and have good support from our surrounding area. We are a standalone children's hospital, and we are the only one in a very large geographic area. So the fact that when we've done these exercises, we've been able to get support from the other facilities in our area that they'd be willing to take kids from us, I think is something I think we can be proud of, that there is a place for some of our children to go. I don't know, Hillary, do you want to say anything? Put you on the spot.
Thanks, Scott. I'm Hillary Hughes. I am sitting in my car as well. I'm sorry, I just pulled into my driveway, and I agree with Scott. I'm an ED doc here at Primary Children's and University of Utah, and excited to learn from you all. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Lonnie Presley, and I'm with UAB Children's of Alabama, and I'm the hub manager there. I have Dr. Mark Baker is our team lead for disaster management. And I have Tania Evans on with us from UAB if she'd like to say anything.
To unmute. Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry. I don't know why my camera's not working at this. Hold on one second. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanina Evans. I'm the project manager under Dr. Baker here at UAB and Children's. And it's a pleasure to meet you all. And I look forward to learning everything you guys are sharing today.
That's awesome. Thanks, you guys. I also see there's a Lindsay Hanway that wrote in chat. Lindsay, do you want to come off mute?
Oh, let's try that again. Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, yeah.
Great. I seem to unmute and remute myself immediately. So my name is Lindsay Hanway, and I am one of the emergency managers for all of Providence Health and Services for the Oregon market. So we oversee 8 hospitals in Oregon for the emergency management program. 6 of our hospitals are opting in to do the virtual tabletop exercise with the DRC, and there's a spattering of who's doing what. So we're really excited for this. We have successfully evacuated 2 of our hospitals before, one was a critical access hospital, one was not. The one that was not a critical access hospital did have call our CAPU, which is our adolescent psychiatric unit. So we have some lessons learned from that situation and how we had some external support in evacuating those vulnerable patients. So we're really looking forward to how do we take the lessons learned from our big 2020 evacuations with all of our wildfires, and those things have kind of settled down and dissipated. So revamping that and relooking at it, and what does our population look at now?
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, I've got you written down. So now there's 2 people in our group that have talked about adolescent and pediatric mental health, and then also your perspective on evacuation for wildfires would be really interesting to hear. That's definitely an acute thing. So grateful that you and your team are on. Is there anyone else that is missing before we move forward? Great. Well, thank you again, everyone. I guess let's do a slide switch and take a look at where everyone is from. You can see that there's a distribution across the entire nation with the Wild Wild West and the Eastern board. All of those areas with the stripes are states that have multiple hospitals playing. Although Oregon, you just said that you had 8 hospitals, so it may be that there are more than one hospital within the states that are just that, that complete blue color. So thank you. But that's our distribution for this group. And these are the hospitals, some of which we've heard from, actually most of which we have heard from today, but there looks to be like there are others on this group. And as we incorporate new folks that are just opting into evacuation, we will add those if there's anyone that we're missing. But thank you again for joining us. I will turn the time over to Julie, who's now going to go through some of the additional demographics.
Thanks everybody for introducing yourself and engaging in that. It's great to have such a amazing crowd here. Somebody mentioned earlier, they looked at the list and they're like, wow, we've got some great hospitals. I mean, the whole entire list. So we may have lower attendance than some of the other focus area sessions, but we are definitely going to make up for it in the knowledge and awesomeness that are here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of data that once you signed up, we put together. We wanted to know, okay, we know who is here. We've introduced ourselves, the distribution, but what does it look like as far as what types of hospitals? So you can see there's this nice little bell curve here for the number of licensed pediatric beds that most is in that 200 to 499 bed range. But then we also have hospitals on each side of that as well. So nice little range there. As far as the type of hospital, you can see there are more freestanding children's hospitals than non-freestanding children's hospitals. So if you think about, you have your children's hospitals standalone or children's hospitals within that bigger health system within that large adult hospital. So this is interesting because some of the other focus areas are switched. So this is not, the DRC is geared towards children's hospitals, but this graph here does not look the same across focus areas. As far as the annual pediatric patient volume, we do have a very high majority have a high volume of pediatric patients. But we do have some of those hospitals that have medium or medium to high range. And then we look at the credentials. And we've heard from everybody as far as who is here today. We have about 37% are RNs. We have around 27% of physicians. And then we also have our certified emergency managers and our EMTs as well. As far as other, we are looking at administration. We're looking at C-suite. We are seeing pharmacists and respiratory therapists. Those are the 4 big buckets, but as we've heard today, there are many, many roles. I will say, some of you mentioned that we have a behavioral health component, and we've put that in there. Some of our teams across DRC, many of the teams across DRC have started to include a behavioral health specialist somewhere within that, within the ED on their team, because it's coming to, it's really coming out that we need to incorporate them in the planning process, because if we have to execute our evacuation plan, they're going to be a part of that. Those behavioral health specialists are going to be somewhere in there. So let's put them in the planning process as well. So we've seen a lot of that on teams as well, where the behavioral health specialists are coming into play. So think about that as you continue on. It is not too late to pull somebody else in on your team if any of these aren't there. So with that, sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. Chew on, think about this for a moment while I see if I can troubleshoot on the back end. Okay, we're going to try this. I have tested and tested and tested Poll Everywhere, and sometimes it's nice to me and works, and sometimes it doesn't. So we are going to do a quality improvement's worst nightmare, and we're going to do a workaround.
And I'm just glad Julie is doing it because I would be compensating right now.
I think somebody from Stanford is here and mentioned Anna Lynn. So Dr. Lynn is not only a great physician and has helped with train, but she's also a technical genius and has helped with Poll Everywhere. So if you will, take out your phone, or if you have a second screen, go to pollev.com/EMSC, or you can text EMSC. You can text 22333 and type in the letters EMSC. So EMSC is our sister organization. So we're borrowing their Poll Everywhere account. There's also a QR code up in the top right. All right, so somebody's in, we're getting results. Fantastic. So again, does your hospital typically serve a patient population beyond a 2-state catchment area?
For those that are semi-challenged like me, I did it on my phone and it was super easy to do the text, which I've never actually done it that way before. But wow, it looks like we have many, or most, 73% that regularly serve patients from more than 2 states. Some 24 occasionally, but it's not common. And no, only 6% primarily serve a local or regional population. So we've got a mix of responses here. Some regularly serve patients outside your state, while others are more locally or regionally focused. And this matters, right? To understand patient movement patterns is critical for evacuation planning and will help us as we move forward with this. Thanks, Julie.
I think the next poll was immediately after, so we'll go ahead and switch.
And this one is one of my favorites, partly because this is a struggle for many facilities, not just pediatrics. So this is a critical factor in evacuation planning. Understanding where we all stand helps us identify common challenges and potential solutions as a group, right? Wow.
If you are on your phone or maybe even your computer, if you press the refresh button, if it did not switch over, but it looks like people are starting to.
This is great. This is super helpful. For those that have ongoing staffing shortages, if you can put in the chat if there's any specific role or area that seems to be the biggest pain point, that would be awesome. And then for those that indicated that staffing is stable, but you have concerns about surge capacity, if you could put in the chat what your biggest worries are about surge capacity. Is it staff? Is it equipment? Is it transport? Is it something else in that surge capacity that keeps you up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Although that one is only 4%, but would be valuable to know. Thank you. Staffing in space. Great. I think we can probably transition to the next slide, Julie, right? For our next slide, we are excited to introduce Kathy to you, who will talk a little bit about the definitions and key terms that we'll be introducing, or that many of you are already aware of, over the next year, so we all are speaking the same language. Kathy, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Annette. I realized when I introduced myself, I did not include my basic introduction that I'm a pediatric ER doc. So just jumped right over that. And if you guys have gone to some of the other DRC talks, I actually talked about a PICU evacuation. So, and I'll bring that in when I talk a little bit about these definitions. Just so you know, too, the way I have organized how I'm going to talk about the definitions may be on one of the 2 slides. So if you don't see the definition, I apologize. And that's my fault. But, you know, and I feel like I'm talking to a pretty seasoned group of people. So this is really kind of a review. But evacuation planning, I often talk about as the grand slam of evacuation, of disaster planning, because it is big, it's intimidating. But I guess my point is it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We always need to remember that these plans are living documents. If you come to me and say, I have 100% perfect plan, honestly, I'm kind of nervous about your plan. And so it's something where you need to always be looking for improvements, always be coming back to it, to build it, to revise it. And as the event that you are planning for is more complex, it's even more applicable. So with evacuation, I feel like a lot of times planners or healthcare workers will look at it and they think of as the sky is falling, apocalyptic, full emergent evacuation. And that surely is a part of the planning, but it is not all of the planning. So I say evacuation has the onion layers of definitions. And so it's really important to know what those layers are and to have them defined in your plan. So first is very simple, full versus partial, and emergent versus controlled. And so as you can imagine, a full hospital is you have to empty the whole thing, versus partial is you do not. And emergent is we are in a dire situation and we got to go, versus controlled is an event has happened where we determine we do need to go, but we can at least take a little bit more time to have it occur. And so just as a reminder, and I think we all know this, hospitals are built to stand. They're stringent building codes. Nobody wants a hospital to go down, and even older hospitals have more stringent building codes than other buildings at that time. So when we do this planning, I often say this is a pause and take a breath planning. So a full evacuation is not impossible by all means, but it's definitely way more unlikely than your other scenarios. And so I like to start with small and build up. So the folks I'm working with, who I'm trying to educate the plan on, don't get overwhelmed. And so as we all know, the importance of our HVA and knowing your risks and knowing your vulnerabilities, and then looking at those top risks and vulnerabilities and asking yourself, what type of evacuation could these lead to? Examples of the different definitions that we just spoke of. An emergent full evacuation. What is it going to take to have a hospital have to emergently, like, let's get up and go and completely evacuate? A massive earthquake where the structure of the building is unstable. I did my training in St. Louis, and so we had folks from the 2011 Joplin tornado come and talk about their experience. And that was something where they had to go. The building was destroyed. And these are the incidents where you're going to need that evacuation equipment. And it's, how can we get these kids out fast? Versus a controlled full evacuation. Well, anybody who's had the pleasure of moving into a new hospital, guess what? You basically are doing a controlled full evacuation. And those are such valuable experiences. Really kind of taking the good, the bad, and ugly from those events and writing them down. And what can we do better and what went great? And then thinking about maybe inviting other hospitals and other emergency managers to take part and to learn from those events. Another controlled full evacuation would be a power failure or a water outage. Clearly we have to go, but it's very different than a building that has sustained an earthquake and is unstable. A controlled partial. So as I said on my first introduction, is I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. So I have been in many hurricane incident commands and flooding incident commands and many water events. But anytime a hospital has done a pre-hurricane evacuation, basically what we call at my institution is getting it down to a Christmas Day census. You have basically participated in a controlled partial evacuation. The next set of definitions I was going to talk about, and it is on this slide, is horizontal and vertical. So as I mentioned, I had talked about a PICU evacuation that we had to do at my institution. And so horizontal is moving horizontally in your building, shifting down a floor, versus vertical could be moving up or down within a building. Some people will actually also use these terms when they're talking about on your campus. So if you move from one building to another building on your campus, you may hear horizontal evacuation used that way as well. But I think the more typical one is within your building. So horizontal and vertical. So when we did the PICU evacuation, that was a vertical evacuation. We actually moved down several floors. Examples of an emergent partial evacuation would be any sort of fire or smoke event where you had to move to the next smoke compartment. A controlled partial, and unfortunately, I feel like this happens in hospitals more than any of us want it to, is that really gross smell, like whether it's a sewage backup or what have you. And there are a couple rooms that seem to be affected at a point where it's not acceptable, and you have to move those couple of patients. That's a great example when you're talking to a group of healthcare workers to point out to them, you have already done these events already, but on a smaller scale. So let's think about that on the smaller scale as we move up to a bigger scale. The next one I was going to talk about was shelter in place. So shelter in place is literally staying where you are. In the South, now that I've lived in the South for 13 years, we would call that hunkering down. Or in the sense of hurricane, tornado speak, we're weathering the storm. And so even with shelter in place, however, there are unannounced or no warning times when you might shelter in place, such as, God forbid, an active shooter or an earthquake response. And then there is the announced or pre-warning shelter in place. And so that can be the tornado, where you have not quite as much warning time, but there is a warning. And then for us, the hurricanes, where we have several days out, if not a week out warning, and we can get our planning together. Next slide. Okay, so I talked about the controlled and the emergent, but talking about crisis standards of care. So on a daily basis, obviously we want to provide the best individualized care to a patient. And our end goal is that they leave and that they at least are at least better, if not cured. That would be our goal. When these events happen, we tend to shift to do the most good for the greatest number of people. We all know that disasters are about resources, but this whole crisis standards of care can be very dynamic and it can change as the event progresses. So what do I mean by that? So when you have a controlled evacuation, as we did with the PICU evacuation, you tend to look at what is the most complex or critical patient, and we're going to move them first. They are the ones, so in our case, we had sewer water pouring into our PICU, which is a nightmare. And the ones that were, ventilated, oscillator, things like that, they could be more highly impacted than someone who was not. And so we moved those patients first. They're at the highest risk of decompensation. When you get to an emergent evacuation, as you all can imagine, the crisis standards of care can sometimes completely reverse or flip. And so this may end up being the situation where you grab as many of the NICU babies and you put them in an apron, and as many as one person can safely transport, you go with it. Those are very not pleasant things to think about, but they're real. And just to really kind of send that message home, when I was thinking of crisis standards of care and sheltering in place, think about an active shooter situation and how dynamic your crisis standards of care are and can change. You are in a shelter in place situation. You are in a lockdown situation, but there's many levels of what that can mean for you as a healthcare worker who's working that day. If the shooter is on your campus, or maybe even in your building, you are in a lockdown situation, and maybe this is a time where you can move patients away from doors. We can get everybody behind locked doors. You can surely lock your unit down. When the shooter then is on the same floor, the priority starts to shift more to the individual healthcare worker, and the need to hide increases. There are many drills that show that healthcare workers are terrible with this. We just cannot walk away from the patient, and that's understandable. So remember, I'm giving a really extreme example. When you have an active shooter in your unit, the number one priority, the crisis standard of care, becomes hide. So can you see how drastic and dynamic that is depending on a situation and how rapidly it can change? So again, dramatic example, and with unfortunately a dramatic event. But I think it kind of sends the message home on that definition. Yeah, and that's my terms.
That's awesome, Kathy. Thank you. That active shooter drill piece that you just mentioned is kind of close to my heart too. I just participated in a drill within the last year, and I was terrible at it. I was supposed to hide, but I was hiding so I could see the door and tell everyone when the shooter was coming. It was like, yeah, it really opened my eyes around my own ability to respond. So we are taking a look now. We have two polls back to back upcoming. So this one is looking at where everyone is in their exercise cycle and where there might be gaps. Well, that's fantastic that there's been over 50% of people have done an exercise in the last year. This is great. And we can share all of these polling results too with folks. And then this one is really important too. And this was, you know, I alluded to this earlier on in our session. It's really important for us to understand what barriers there are to advancing pediatric planning, and then call on you that I've already underlined your names that have that don't have these barriers or that have found a way to surpass them. Yeah, that time competing priorities is a really hard one. For those that have put other, can you write in the chat what your other might be so that we can capture that? I see you changed your mind now. Is that because you didn't want to write in chat? No, I'm just kidding. There are some nuances, I understand. Great. Well, I think we can maybe talk a little bit around here to kind of look at some of these polling results. We'll just do this really pretty quickly. But for those that have conducted a drill, an exercise in the last year, what were your biggest takeaways? Were there any aha moments that you would like to share with the group?
Hey, Annette, it's Hillary Hughes. I would say one of the things was that even though people have been trained on equipment, they didn't remember how to use it. And I think it's because if you only get trained as you're a hire, or, you know, once a year, we know how quick turnovers are. I think it's really hard to keep updated. And the doctors had no idea how to use it. The nurses did, but the doctors had no idea.
I love that you brought that in, because that also brings in that staff turnover challenge and then the competing priorities for time that have already been mentioned. Thanks for sharing there. I know there were a couple of groups that were on that talked about their new equipment that their staff actually voted on. So that might be a good session in the future to maybe template some of that. Anyone else like to share an aha moment?
Hey, it's Lindsay in Oregon.
Hi, Lindsay.
Ours was more than a couple years ago, but our biggest one I think that we still struggle with is our evacuation tools, our sleds and such, were based on the general population. And we found out that we have one specific in-house unit called our Center for Medically Fragile Children. And a lot of these kids are wheelchair bound. They have contractures and things like that don't allow them to use the sleds and to lay flat, even with, you know, things attached to them. So really interesting that their entire patient population on this unit could not use the tools that we had provided for the entire hospital.
Oh, I love that you brought that up. The children and youth with special health care needs, that is really an important, and perhaps that's also something we can interplay with these sessions upcoming too. I'm gonna skip a couple because I know that we're a little bit short on time, and we'll go to poll number 2. So that was poll number 1. This is poll number 2. But there were obviously some barriers that were selected that were pretty frequent. Does anyone want to share which one of these barriers they feel like is the hardest to overcome? And if you think it can be addressed with the right tools or support, if anyone would like to take that one on.
I can talk.
Yeah, Kathy.
Honestly, as an emergency planner, I found evacuation to be one of the most difficult things to exercise. It is hard to convince a C-suite or even a nursing group in a unit that you should do a drill. And there's a lot of patient safety issues, clearly. So we often looked at these from a more of a tabletop stance, and even that can be a challenge as to how many, do you get all the groups to participate and such. From a equipment, it's also, people are busy. It's not like they're sitting around doing nothing where you can just be like, hey, let's practice an evacu sled. And so if you are, maybe I say lucky enough, where you have things like Team A situations, that's a perfect time. They are a captive audience. The census is down, and we used to go around having them practice different. And honestly, their mind is kind of in that area at that point. So they were kind of eager to do those things then. And then we also would, during the month of September, during National Preparedness Month, would do a disaster fair and disaster Olympics. And so we would have the different units compete against each other using the different equipment. And so that doesn't just have to be evacuation equipment. You can do triage, drills, decon stuff, all types of things. But even then, that is something where it takes a lot of planning, a lot of effort. How many do you actually train? So, but it does get a lot of buzz and talk and excitement. So it's always good when you're a planner that you feel like people are excited about what you're doing.
I love that you used it as an opportunity to have units compete against each other, because I can only speak for myself, but we were pretty competitive, and
yes,
we always wanted to be the SICU specifically. Or the CVICU was the other one. We're like, we're going to beat those guys. So, but I love that you brought that competitive edge to it and that fun component. So perhaps we can, I start that for potentially a future session too. I know, again, we're running out of time. I can't believe we don't have very much time left. So let's go to the next slide, Julie. So I'm going to review this really fast because it interplays with the last polling question, which is extremely important for this session. And so some of you might have been on the last DRC evacuation session. And again, I'm not necessarily going to go through all of this information, but it was kind of eye-opening that over 50% of folks on the call had never evacuated, that only one person, and I hope they're on this group right here, felt fully prepared and fully ready to evacuate. Hopefully they are on with us. But what is really probably most important is the things that in the polling and the evaluation process that people liked the most is they liked the opportunity to connect with peers, to learn from actual events and life experiences, and they appreciated actionable strategies that they could apply. And so that interplays again with our last polling question. And Julie, do you want to flip to that next slide? And what people did not like, and what they felt was really important, is that the breakout sessions were too rushed. We allocated 15 minutes and they felt like that wasn't sufficient time. There were some groups in which not everyone could share, and some folks were very quiet. And so there were some, it would be great to get kind of that thought process around those breakout sessions. The agenda was really heavy, and there felt like there was a lot of content to cover. And so moving forward, we would love, folks, it seemed, wanted a more structured discussion time with those real world practical takeaways. And so we will move into our last poll. And if you haven't participated in the other polls, this one is probably the most important, because our entire year moving ahead in our timeline will be around your suggestions for this poll. So what do you think? What do you want? We are here as an evacuation group to hopefully give you what you want. So what would make this pediatric evacuation collaborative most valuable to you? If there's anyone has resources they have found helpful, please even put the name of a resource or anything else you may think of there. Great. These are some super helpful things that we can begin to work with. All right. Well, as we wrap up today's session and I turn the time back to Julie so that you guys can see next steps, really, let's do a really short discussion. So based on today's polling and conversation, what are the highest priority topics that we should focus on in upcoming sessions? And feel free to unmute and shout it out, put it in the chat. What is it that we should focus on? Anyone got any just we have to get this done in the next 2 months priorities or 6 months? Developing a plan. As we're talking through this, before I turn it back to Julie, if there's anything that you can think of that would help improve our small group sessions, please put that in the chat. I see a couple of people have put thumbs up to developing a plan. A couple of people have had to run. Boy, that's a great one, Ashley. Coordination between the coalitions and the units. That's awesome. Great. And again, maybe if you can keep on kind of thinking through what that looks like and putting it in the chat, we'll skip to the next slide so we can overview expectations and Julie can finish us out. But what have you committed to do for the next year? So you've committed to be part of a team, to participate and be present in these sessions, to evaluate where your hospital stands, so assess your current capacity and capabilities, so review your plan and then come with areas that need to be worked on, to conduct exercises and drills, and that's something Julie's going to talk about in a moment, and this will be over the next 18 months. And then also to share, and I had the opportunity to be really involved in a disaster collaborative, a communication collaborative actually at Berkeley, and so I think putting some expectations that were learned in that class into this, it would be to show up and be present, right? To be involved, to pay attention to what has heart and meaning. And there were a couple of things that really resonated with folks today, and hopefully we've taken note of that. To tell the truth without blame or judgment as we all move forward and share our stories, some of which I'm sure will be painful to relive, and then just to be open to the outcome, not necessarily attached to the outcome, are some of the things, the 4 things that were put forward in that workshop to be really important, especially as we're a part of a collaborative session. So Julie, I will turn the rest of it over to you.
Thank you, Annette. Thanks everybody for joining today. Stick with me for just a few more moments, please, and we'll get to the session evaluation. If you have not already, please, and again, we'll put all this in follow-up messages, but go to the EMSC improvement website if you have not already, or if you haven't gotten it from the DRC resources site, the disaster checklist, and review domain 5, the evacuation planning. That is going to have you step by step, something that is going to help with planning in the evacuation. And I know that was mentioned in the chat. So this is going to be a basis for a lot of things DRC. If you've signed up for a virtual tabletop exercise, the self-assessment PD pack that I mentioned earlier, it's all really based in this disaster checklist. So check that out. I'm not going to read through all of these resources. This was on a previous session early on in DRC, but I do want to point out this second one, intervention bundle guides and process measures. This is going to be your webpage. So we are about to launch an evacuation webpage, and also the other 3 focus areas if you're involved in that. So that will be coming, and that can be accessed through the DRC website as well. Here is this nice timeline for you as far as the next year and a half. This is what you can expect. So we've had a focus area session today. We're going to have a focus area session in April, and then we're all going to come back together to a full collaborative session, all 4 focus areas, and meet and hear what the other sessions and the other groups have been doing. And then we'll stick with that cadence, 2 focus area sessions and then a full collaborative session throughout. If you have chosen a virtual tabletop exercise with the PPN's drills and exercises team, that's coming up. We are going to hopefully hear from you about that. If you have not chosen a virtual tabletop exercise and maybe your hospital has chosen to do it on your own, hopefully you'll do that in the next 3 months, 4 months, so that we can hear from you on that, because we want to hear from everybody. Again, you've seen this slide, but I want to point out this at the bottom. If you have signed up for a virtual tabletop exercise, please note that whoever you've named as your facilitator or evaluator needs to either attend a training session or watch the recording of that training session. And that is available. Put the DNC PPN at austin.utexas.edu email in the chat. So feel free to email me if you need that recording. Upcoming sessions, again, we were going to meet right here, same time, same place, same link. So on April 1st, you can use the link that when you registered for today, you also registered for April 1st. So you can use the same Zoom link that you used for this current session right here. And then the May 6th collaborative session registration and link will be available by the end of the week. We've got a new podcast coming out, so make sure you go to the DRC and the PPN website and check out that. It is about a bus crash in California. And always, as always, all the other podcasts are just excellent and super informative. Here is what we have all been waiting so patiently for. Okay. So little technical difficulty today. On your session evaluation that just popped up on your screen, it says surge capacity session 7. Imagine that says evacuation, because the last session I put up your session evaluation. So this will go, and for your CEs, you will get credit for this. Question number 3 says, based on this session, my knowledge about the need for planning for pediatric surge capacity related to disaster response, pretend that says for evacuation related to disaster response has increased. So apologies for that. And then of course your code to take to the CE portal to get your continuing education units are on there. As you fill out the session evaluation, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us for evacuation session. And we hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful month. And we look forward to seeing you on April 1st, same time, same place. Have a wonderful day. And when you're finished with your session evaluation, you can go ahead and close out your browser. Thank you.